Hey guys, Ezra here, and welcome back to another Ezra review. And on today's review, I want to talk about 28 Weeks Later, which is a sequel to 28 Days Later that came out 5 years after the original movies in 2007. Now, this sequel is directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, I think, which is a Spanish filmmaker. Um, I think Danny Boyle and alexgarland doesn't return to this movie because they were busy making a movie called Sunshine, which also stars Cillian Murphy. I think it was a pretty good underrated sci-fi movie, but that's the reason why they don't come back to direct the sequel or write the sequel. As for my opinion for the sequel, I would say that this movie is a pretty good sequel, but it doesn't necessarily reach the quality of the first movie, because I think the sequel is different enough, which is on one hand I could appreciate that they at least try to do something different, but at the same time I do kind of miss the isolated, desolated place of England, because that's what you get from the first movie. So the movie itself became bigger, and there's a lot more action, a lot more explosion, a lot more gore, which I don't think I can show on this video. But still, the gore is pretty insane at times. It was like over the top, and it was certainly fun, but it just missed this. I don't know, kind of missed this a little bit of the intensity part of it. Like, I guess like the isolation part of the movie that I think the first movie does really, really well. But I don't think this is like a bad movie. I think this is a pretty good follow-up, and I think some people still enjoy this movie despite the fact that it's not as good as the first one. So for the sequel, the movie kind of opens with Dawn and Alice in a house where they're bunkered down during the 28 days, infected, where the race virus spread in, the Great Britain. And I think this opening sequence, in my opinion, is one of the best opening sequence ever, because pretty much when you meet all the survivor, they decide to save a child, and this child basically carry a bunch of zombies towards those location. And I think it was insane the way they revealed that, because like the house was like dark, there's no electricity, so they're just using candles, and then it was revealed that the whole time that it was taking place in daylight, which I think is a really cool reveal. But yeah, basically a bunch of zombies found them because they saved a child, and all hell breaks loose. You see so many people die in the house, and it was a really, really insane carnage that happens in the house. And it kind of ends with Don leaving Alice and the child, which really, really surprised me, because I thought Don is gonna be maybe playing a hero, where he's gonna save his own wife, but like no, like he just closed the door and then he runs away. And at first I was like, man, Don is a coward, but after rethinking it and then like rewatching the movie, I still sympathize with Don, because at the end of the day he was scared of the situation. I think it's easy for us, the viewers, to look at the situation as a viewers, and it's like, oh yeah, of course we're gonna go in there and save the wife. But if you put yourself in that situation, then I think most people will become like Don, where they're just gonna abandon their loved one and then try to you know, save himself essentially. And I think that's what most people will probably do. So that's why I understand why Don reacted that way, and I think the movie does a good job to explain the character's emotion, that it kind of makes the characters actually likable, instead of like, you hate the characters or like calling him a coward. And some people still going to do that, but again, if you understand where the situation was, I think the movie kind of portrays that really, really well through the acting. And then obviously we gotta talk about the cinematography in this movie, or like the directing in the opening sequence, and it was so good. I especially love the shot where Dawn is like being chased by a bunch of infected, and you see this camera like follow him like through the to the field, like around the field, and then like you see a bunch of zombies after him, and then obviously the amazing score by John Murphy, which is In the House in a Heartbeat starts playing, which is absolutely amazing. And turns out that this opening sequence was actually directed by Danny Boyle himself. And yeah, that makes sense, because I think the opening sequence of 28 Weeks Later is like the best part about this movie, because the rest of them are good, they're fun, sometimes over the top, but I think the opening sequence are like a different beast, where it's just like a great opening sequence and you feel the intensity immediately from that scene alone, and it was directed by Danny Boyle, so I think that makes sense. But yeah, after that amazing opening sequence, Dom managed to get away, and then we cut back to Tammy and Andy during where they try to repopulate London. Which I think this is like an interesting plot point in the movie where you see that the infected actually stop, because they starved to death after 56 days, and now they're trying to repopulate London, and then because every infected is dead, and it was like, oh yeah, this is like an interesting angle for a sequel, because usually in a zombie sequel you see that the world is getting more torn apart by the zombie apocalypse. But on this movie, it's actually different, where you actually see the world is trying to recover from the infected, and I think that is, really really interesting. But basically, we meet a bunch of survivor in this location, and basically, Tammy and Andy, they felt sad, obviously, because they didn't see, their mother again, because they think that the mother is dead, right? Because like Don is leaving Alice behind, and at first Don is trying to lie to them and try to, basically you kind of feel bad for Don, because you know that he doesn't want to leave his wife, but like he is scared by the situation, and I understand why he did that, and clearly he doesn't like, again, he's not proud of himself for doing that, but he did that. But eventually, Time and Andy decide to agree that we're gonna go to our house and then try to find a picture there. And when they get to their house, they manage to find a picture of their mother, but it was revealed that their mother actually still alive, miraculously. And the mother was actually taken back to the research facility, in the quarantine zone. And we met a bunch of new characters. One of them is named Doyle, played by Renner, sorry. Jeremy Renner. The other one is named Scarlett, played by Rose Bryan, I think. And there is also Idris Elba playing Commander Stone, or like General Stone. And it's really weird that this character, like Idris Elba was British, but he's playing an American soldier in this movie, which is like so funny to me, because like 28 weeks later, and like, or like 28 days later franchise is a British movie, with British characters, and then they cast Idris Elba, which is a British actor, and then for some reason they make him play an American soldier. It's like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird, but also like fine, I guess, like it's a good performance. So Scarlett analyzed, why Alice still survived, and apparently the virus kind of mutated inside of her, and then, but it was revealed that she is still dangerous, because like if like somebody is like having a, like, basically make a contact with her, like a physical contact, then there is a chance that the person will be infected. And to me, this lead to like one of the dumbest moment in the movie, where we see Don, because obviously the kids were mad at him, like, hey, you're lying because you think that you said that mom is dead, but like here she is, she's still alive. And Don obviously felt guilty, and she decided to pay a visit to his wife in the research facility. Keep in mind, this is a research facility in the military. And for some reason, Don was able to walk right inside that containment room with his own key card, because I think in the beginning of the movie they kind of explained that, oh, Don owned the place and it has this key card, but I didn't think that the key card was able to access a military facility, because I feel like that's like supposed to be a completely different jurisdiction, right? I think it makes sense to me, but for some reason his key card was able to open the door, and for some other bigger dumber reason is that nobody's guarding the containment room. Like, they know this woman is infected and is completely dangerous and contagious, and for some reason there is not a single military personnel guarding the door, so Don was just able to walk right in, so that is the flaw of 28 weeks later, because like after everything that happens after this scene, it's like, yeah, it's good, but the reason why it was happening is so stupid, in my opinion. Like, damn, it was so stupid. But Don basically apologized to Alice that, I'm sorry, I'm scared, and then they kiss. And remember, because they make a physical contact, Don was infected by the race virus, and then he killed his wife, and then basically restarting the whole infection, and then they locked down the entire military building. And we have these intense scenes, where the younger brother, Andy, right, he basically got separated from Tammy and Scarlett because there's a bunch of people panicking, and then he got dragged into like a basement room or something like that, and then the military personnel basically contained these people. And then in the dark, Andy sees his father, becoming a zombie, already infected, and then it was a really intense scene, in my opinion, because it was in the dark, and the editing was kind of like super shaky and super fast and super intense, kind of like the first movie did. And I think it was scary, man. Imagine being a child in that dark room with a lot of people, and then there is like one infected person, because again, the race virus, remember, once a person gets infected, then it only takes like a couple of seconds before they turn into a zombie. So that's why the virus spreads so fast. Basically, panic ensues, but Andy managed to get away, and then we see this another intense scenes, where the survivors running out of the building, and then like you see a bunch of snipers in the roof trying to contain the situation. And at first they try to shoot the infected people, but unfortunately General Stone basically ordered the snipers to basically gun down everybody, which is really, really messed up. So you see this massacre that is committed by the snipers, where they just shot ordinary people. And Andy was in the middle of the situation, and obviously Jeremy Renner's character Doyle was participating in that, but eventually he decided to stop, because he can't bring himself to kill innocent people. And I think it was a good intense scene itself, which again, they also play the iconic score in the house in a heartbeat again, because like, I think they realized how amazing that first that score was in the first movie, so they decided to use it 3 times in this movie. This is the second time, so I think it works, because like it was an intense scene, and it was really, really messed up the way they just like sacrificing the normal people just to contain the infection, which we all know that it's impossible to do that. But the remaining survivors basically team up with Doyle and Scarlett, and they decide to team up with basically contact Flynn, which is like Doyle's best friend. He's a helicopter pilot, and Doyle asks Flynn to get them out of the city, because like they are planning to basically bomb the entire city just to contain the infection, which is really, really insane. So they go to this like abandoned park, which I think is a really good setting, and then Flynn arrived, but Flynn basically doesn't want to take anybody besides Doyle, because like he thinks that, oh, it's only Doyle, but apparently Doyle brought a bunch of survivors, and then he doesn't want to deal with like the top commanders, because like this is basically because he basically disobeying orders here, and then he only disobey orders for his best friend Doyle, and then he doesn't agree to take the survivors, and then it creates this immediate chaos, because one of the survivors decided to like grab the helicopters, because he so desperately want to get into the helicopters, because they were panicking, and then this panicking attracts a lot of infected, and then we have this amazing scene where Flynn basically just like drive the helicopters forward, and it just cuts a bunch of infected. I hope I can show you guys for like a couple of seconds the carnage, because I think it was really, really amazing here. And it's like the way they done it behind the scene as well is also amazing, because like they use practical effects and dummies obviously, and they combine everything together in one shot. I think the VFX in this scene is really, really good, and the practical effects also like really, really good. It's one of the famous scenes I remember from this movie, just helicopters just killing a bunch of zombies, which is like really, really insane. Maybe it's not realistic, but who cares? It's just really, really fun. So Doyle and Scarlett decide to, take care of like the other survivors, and then like they try to take care of Tammy and Andy, but at some point where they try to run with a car, try to start a car, the car basically jam, and then like Doyle has to get out and push the car so they can start the car, right? And then it was revealed there is a little gas or something that the military has been deployed throughout the cities, because the cities has been bombed by the military, which I think it has a really amazing effect as well, because so many people are dying, and it's really insane that they try to repopulate the city, and now the military is bombing everything. Doyle exits the car and then tried to push the car to start it, but sadly he was burned alive by the military personnel, because again, he's disobeying the orders, and then like he could be infected, so he has to be killed. Which honestly surprised me, because I thought that Jeremy Renner's character will survive the movie, but apparently no, he dies, by at least by helping the kids to escape. So Scarlett and the kids basically to take shelter from the aerial gunfire from the helicopter, and like I said, this movie has more action sequences. It's a very different movie compared to the first one. But we have this amazing scene in the end where they use like a night vision in a gun in order to try to navigate through the subway, and then you only see them to the night vision perspective, through Scarlett's perspective essentially, because she's holding a gun with a night vision, so you only see through that perspective, which I think is amazing. Might be a bit confusing at times, because like I think on one hand it does create tension between like Andy and Tammy, they try to like get out of the tunnel, but there is a bunch of bodies there, and who knows what was down there in the tunnel, right? But I think at one point, even though this was amazing, there is one scene that really confused me because like Don, the dad, basically appear in the tunnel and kill Scarlet. And at first, I did not realize what happened because the editing was like so fast, and the night vision perspective was like really really small. So I don't realize what happens at first because at one point when I was first watching this movie, I was confused that wait, what happened to Scarlet? She just disappeared. Like, oh, like apparently after rewatching it, Don basically killed Scarlet, and I missed that the first time. So I think even though it's a cool idea, I think in the end it's kind of confusing for a bit for me, which I think that's completely fine because I think at the end of the day it's a good sequence. So it's also pretty insane that Dom was able to track the kids throughout London because like he was in the basement and then you see him a bit in the street when they bombed the city, and then now he was in the basement basically tracking the kids all the way through London. Even during the bombing, the little gas, the flamethrower, like it was absolutely insane how this guy was able to do that, like, which again defies believability, because I don't know how this guy was able to track the children, but he did. Sadly, Don got Andy, and then he bites Andy in the neck, and yeah, it's just heartbroken because like I think the acting by the actor Macintosh Mangleton, which is like the child actor who plays Andy, like I think his scream in this scene was absolutely amazing. It was like really, like you feel really really sad for him. But basically Tammy appears and then save Andy, quote unquote save Andy by killing Don finally, and it was revealed that Andy was bitten, but he was fine, and it was revealed that he actually has this immunity, from his mother, because again, remember his mother was immune to the virus, or I guess like the virus is still inside her body, but she didn't transform. But she still could infect other people through physical contact. So I'm assuming the same rule applies to Andy, where like, yeah, Andy doesn't become an infected or zombies, but the virus is still inside him, and then he could infect other people, including his sister. But eventually, after that, they reach to the rendezvous points in the stadium, Wembley Stadium, where they meet Flynn. And then Flynn reluctantly agrees to fly them to France. This is where we see London again one last time as they ride away with the helicopters. And then once again, they play In the House in a Heartbeat one last time, which I think, yeah, I mean, it's a great song, so I don't really mind for them playing it here. I think the usage of the song in the first movie is still way more effective. It's way more scary and way more intense. And something with the first movie as well, though. I think the entire first movie is like way more interesting and way more intense for me compared to the sequel. But the sequel itself does have some good moments in it, and does have some intense and scary moments, especially the opening sequence. But we cut to 28 days later, and we see that the infection was able to reach Paris. You see the Eiffel Tower, and then you see a group of infected running around. And interestingly enough, this ending was supposed to be a bit different, because I don't think they're planning to film this ending, but apparently a couple of weeks before the movie was released, the filmmaker decided to film this new ending by just basically doing like a guerrilla filmmaking in Paris. They just like set up the camera really really fast, and then hire a couple of actors to play the zombies, and then they shoot the ending really really quickly in Paris. And I think it's a really effective ending, because now it's like seemingly the virus was able to spread to the mainland of Europe, and I'm really curious to see how 28 years later will handle this situation, because I think 28 years later, I think the infection is still contained in the Great Britain. Like at first I assumed that the infection was worldwide, right? Because like it's 28 years later, so like I think it's safe to assume that the infection goes worldwide, especially with the ending of this movie. But apparently I think in 28 years later, the infection was still contained in the Great Britain. So I guess we'll see about that in the 28 years later. But yeah, that was 28 weeks later, guys. It was such an amazing sequel. It's not as good as the first one, but I do think it's a good follow-up, which I think has some interesting ideas on itself, has some good performance by the actor, like once again, 28 weeks later movie has like an A-list Hollywood well-known actor in this movie, which I think Jeremy Renner and Idris Elba, which I think they are pretty early on in their career here. And yeah, it's just like, I'm glad that the movie actually tried to do something different compared to the first one. even though I don't really like it as much as the first one, but I do think this is a good sequel. It has some highlights, throughout the moment, the opening sequence, or where the survivors are trying to escape and then they were gunned down by the military. Like, that was messed up, So yeah, at the end of the day, it's still a good sequel, and I really cannot wait to see what 28 years later has in store. So yeah, either of you guys tell me your opinions in the comment section below. What do you guys think about 28 weeks later? What is your favorite scene? And do you guys think that this movie is better than 28 days later, or do you guys think that the first movie is still better than the sequel? Let me know your opinions about that in the comment section below. And if you guys enjoyed this video, then make sure you guys bite and burn and shoot that subscribe and like button. Share the videos, do usual stuff, and stay tuned for more reviews in the future. And stay tuned for the 28 years later review at some point next week. Maybe, we'll see. But either way, guys, again, I hope you guys enjoyed this movie review, and I'll see you guys in the next one then. Bye.